What's up, guys? We're starting a new series, a speedrun series. This is our first game, starting from rating 575. So our opponent opens up with one F4, not standard. We're going to respond with D5, a pawn move in the center, protected by the queen. It's a very principled response to a flank pawn moving forward. You move forward in the center. Our opponent's rated 670. He now develops the knight, knight f3. What does this threaten? Nothing. What are the drawbacks? None. We're just going to make a regular developing move with our knight. Maybe. Okay, our opponent goes d4. So immediately this creates a hole because he moved both of these pawns. So none of them can ever go here or here, which means that I could put a piece here and it can't be kicked by a pawn. So that's probably not the best idea for him. Of course, I'm not going to do that immediately. I'm going to take my time, I'm going to develop, and I'll do that later. But first things first, I'm going to go c5. Now, there's so many moves. You can develop your bishop. You can play e3, e6, I mean. You can even develop this knight if you wanted, probably. But I'm going to go c5 because I want to develop my knight here, but I want to do it behind the pawn, not in front of it. It's very common to move your pawn up before you develop the knight on the queen's knight from white and from black. This move immediately attacks the center as well as gets ready to put the knight here. He takes the pawn. It wasn't defended. I didn't mention that, but that's okay. If you really wanted to win it back, you can go queen a5 and take it, but I'm not worried about that pawn per se right now. So again, you can develop the knight here. You can play e6. I'm just going to stay flexible and develop the knight because we know the knight wants to go here. We might want to develop the bishop and then close the pawn chain, although you can close the pawn chain first and just take your pawn back. So right now black has one pawn in the center, white does not. Black has two pieces, minor pieces developed, white has one. So you can see just from that something didn't go right for white. White's not better. This bishop goes in front of this pawn, which I don't like. It's blocking the way of this pawn. It's also very vulnerable, let's say to knight g4, and it's on a very awkward square. This is a very misplaced piece. He should try to castle as fast as possible and not worry about his queen side, especially after playing f4. Okay, but I'm his opponent, so I guess I like seeing this. And again, I could immediately attack this. That does move a piece twice in the opening. It is for a good reason, because you're hitting this bishop which has nowhere to go on this diagonal. So you could do that. He seems to maybe trying to be defending this pawn. I think that's what he's trying to do. I'm not really sure. It's hard to say. I'm just going to go e6, developing my bishop and eyeing this pawn. And then next move, I can hit the bishop, and the bishop can't defend the pawn unless it goes to g1, which is ridiculous. So I'm just doing normal developing stuff. So he develops his knight, normal enough. Generally, like I said, you often want to move your c-pawn first to challenge the center, and then bring the knight out. That way you have two units challenging the center instead of just one unit, which is the knight. Okay, so he develops the knight. I noticed they're kind of, potential forkable squares, but this knight doesn't really do anything. Um, Developing the bishop is kind of superficial. It's not the best square for it. I mean, nothing wrong with it, but if you're going to develop, it's better to go king side first. But in this particular case, I'm going to go after this misplaced bishop. Normally, you just continue to, if your opponent plays like solid moves, developing moves, good moves, you just develop and then you worry about taking action. But if they misplace their pieces and do stuff like this, then sometimes you can break the rules. You can move pieces twice, or you can move your queen out early, things like that. And he moves his rook over. What the heck is this? He hangs his bishop, which I'm gonna take, but I just want to try to. So I'm rated 670. I'm white. Rook G1. He goes. What could possibly be the reason for, like, there's what could possibly be the idea behind that? But you know what? I'm just gonna take the piece because who knows what this guy's thinking. And now we're up a bishop, so the game's over essentially. Even though this guy's rated 600, even if he was rated 2000, the game would be over here because I'm up a piece. So if I can't win that, that's very problematic. So he develops his queen, which was under attack. He also counterattacks my knight. So what do we do? Well, you could take the bishop and get your knight. You know, that way it's safe. You're trading pieces. But that bishop's kind of stuck. It didn't move. I don't really want to take it. Um, there's this move d4, which protects the knight. And if he takes, you take with the queen. So he can't take. It also attacks this knight. So that's an interesting move. But I'm going to keep things super simple since this is low rating. I just want to develop another piece, take my pawn back, and defend the knight, and x-ray the rook. So it's like a multi-purpose move. Of course, you have to say, well, what if he goes knight a4, hitting the bishop, which is protecting the knight? Are you running into anything? And maybe you are. So let's see. Bishop takes, knight here. So we have to say, what resources do we have in that position? Because the bishop defends the knight, maybe we have, let's say, queen a5 check, right? Hitting the king and the knight. Now, if he doesn't want to lose his knight, he basically has to move it back. In which case, our bishop is safe again. So I'm going to take the pawn. Alternatively, if he did this, if you really wanted, you could probably like take here, check. He takes your piece, you take a rook, he takes your piece. That way you don't lose material, but there's no reason to give back material here. And even a simple move like retreating your knight is fine because you're up a piece. It's not ideal though because you start giving him tempi and your knight starts running out of good squares to go to. So it's better to be aggressive and accurate. So anyway, he goes knight g5. I don't know why I was expecting him to find knight a4, but you have to look for your opponent's best moves and take them into consideration on every turn. So he develops his knight here. What's the threat? Well, he's threatening maybe to win a pawn, but who cares? What else is he threatening? That seems to be it. Um, what are the drawbacks of this move? The undefend central squares that he was previously defending. He's also undefending the rook, which means now this sack works because he gets only a knight. When I take the rook, he doesn't get to take back because his knight's not where it should be. There's also simple moves like h6, also fine. There's so many moves here, like everything is winning. It's crazy. I mean, look at all these arrows. So if you're wondering, well, what about this move? It's probably fine. It's very hard to make a bad move here. I'm just going to go for the simple knight takes pawn check. And what this does is it forks these two, meaning his queen has to take. And then I was going to take his rook. Basically, he gets a knight and I get a rook and a pawn. But he didn't even take my knight, which means now both rooks are hanging. So I guess I'll take this one. And he pre-moves his queen. I'll take his queen. And I mean, I'm just going to take his stuff and try to finish the game fast because I don't think there's going to be educational value at this point other than maybe learning how to checkmate faster. So basically, he's still giving up free stuff. And I just want to use my piece, not touch my pawns, and use my pieces to checkmate him, right? So first I'm going to get my queen out. Just apply a little pressure. You could have maybe gone to f6 too. Probably fine. Okay, he's giving free stuff, so I'm just going to take it. I'm up 22 points of material, so why is he not resigning is the question. Okay, he just took another pawn. I don't know what he's doing, but I'm gonna ignore his knight and just check him so I could checkmate him. He went forward. That's annoying. I guess I'll check him this way and drive him towards my army. Just know I'm not calculating here. I'm just kind of moving because I know it's over, and then I don't know. I'm just gonna give him this check. I don't know, maybe he'll go up one. Give him this check, maybe he'll go up one. Oh, that's not checkmate because of this. That's annoying. That's a pretty checkmate. We win our first game. Plus 26. We're gonna play another game. That one very quickly. Okay, so we got another game with the black pieces. We're now 601. Our opponent goes 1 e4. We're gonna go 1 e6. Okay, he's gonna go c3, preparing d4, which does not need to be prepared. So c3 makes no sense. He can just go d4 immediately, and now he's taking this knight away, this square away from the knight. Makes no sense, but whatever. I'm just gonna go d5, attacking the center from move 2. And if he takes, I'll recapture. And now my bishops are... So white gives me a check on this diagonal. This is a bad move because this encourages me to play c6, solidifying my pawn chain and kicking his bishop with tempo. So I'm going to do that. Of course, the alternatives, developing the knight and bishop, are playable too. But c6 makes a lot of sense because you get another turn. And again, you can develop your knights, you can develop your bishops. Dealer's choice. But in this position, I see a free pawn. So I'm not worried about white doing anything. I'm not worried. Like, a lot of times when you take a pawn, you're wasting time. So your opponent, you know, sometimes it's scary because they get to use that time to bring out pieces. In this case, this bishop is never going to do anything. He has nothing else developed. His knight actually can't come out. And once I take this pawn, this knight can't come out. So there's nothing to worry about. He pre-moves d3 in a 10-minute game. Okay, so now this pawn is hanging, right? I'm already up a pawn. So you could take with the pawn, but you could also take with the queen. offering the queen trade because you're up 2 pawns, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm up 2 pawns. If he trades queens, that's fine with me. Even if he wins this pawn after trading, I'll still be up a pawn, and then I should be able to win from there. So he brings his bishop back, wasting more time. I'm just going to take the queen. He takes with the king, which is a bad move in the sense that he loses castling rights, but his idea is by leaving the bishop here, he gets to keep pressure on the pawn. But I'm just going to make the most natural move, protecting the pawn, and then white's going to go bishop g5, attacking the knight, which defends the pawn. And then I can go knight g4, attacking this pawn, which forks these two. Worth a shot. You need a response to bishop g5 is the point of this whole thing, because you don't want to lose this pawn. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but if you can keep it, you might as well. And bishop g5, which looks like the natural move, does kind of walk into knight g4. I mean, he can defend this pawn in a number of ways, but then I can attack his bishop, and I can go f5 defending the pawn, and then bring my knight back. So otherwise, if this didn't work, I would have played f5 immediately, just defending the pawn, and then develop my knight. But this is kind of a tricky sequence. He moves his bishop for like the 50th time because he apparently doesn't know he has other pieces. And okay, so we're just going to do normal stuff and we're going to develop. I mean, yes, there are these tricks, but whatever. We're just going to develop our pieces. So we're going to get everything out. This is what you should do. Because if you waste time just doing stuff like this and he just brings out his pieces. Okay, now that he's attacking this and threatening to double our pawn structure, which again isn't that bad here, but still we can kind of counter with this move because it comes with a threat. So it's not a waste of time. It also gives us the option of going to different squares. And now his bishop, his dark square bishop, is staring at nothing. His light square bishop is staring into a brick wall. He develops the knight to protect backwards. Now that pawn is still technically hanging because it's hit twice. You won't get the fork, but you will get the pawn. But let's see what else we have. We can attack this bishop with something like h6, a free tempo move, which creates lift for our king. We can develop our knights, something like that. But I see no reason not to take the pawn. So I'm going to take it with check, forcing his knight to take, so he doesn't lose the rook. Okay. I'm just going to take the rook. What was the point of knight here if you're not going to take back? Oh, I guess he did it because he couldn't put it here and doesn't know about e2. But how do you not see your rooks hanging? That's crazy. Knight f4. What does this threaten? It threatens nothing. What is the drawback? I don't see any other than it undefends f2 in case that's relevant. Okay, it's our turn. We could evacuate the knight and head here. That seems reasonable. We could always throw in a move like h6. Okay, so we are victorious. We just won another 20 points. So we are going to do one more game. We have the black pieces at 622. He goes 1e4. We're going to respond with 1d6 and see what he does. He develops his knight to c3. We're going to develop our knight and put a little pressure on the central pawn. He immediately goes f4, being very aggressive and hostile. Maybe he wants to push this pawn, in which case we'll take. He'll take. We'll go. We'll just jump our knight in the center in that case. He immediately goes queen f3. What does this threaten? Nothing immediately. What's the drawback of this move? Well, it undefends the d2 pawn, and it takes away this square from the knight. Okay. It does give us some weird options like this, but I don't see the need to do that just yet. I'm just going to develop our bishop normal. Okay. I'm walking into level 700 elo prep here. He goes f5, trying to play on the light squares. What does this threaten? Threatens to take on g6. Is that a big deal? No. What are the drawbacks of this move? It creates a beautiful square in the center for my knight. Okay. So how do I respond? Well, I don't need to just... When someone pushes a pawn like this, or attacks your pawn, a lot of lower rated players, their first instinct is to take the pawn. But your first instinct should be, oh, my opponent attacks me with his pawn. What attacking moves do I have? What forcing moves do I have? Like, you don't even pay attention to the pawn, and you look for checks, captures, and threats. And if that stuff doesn't work, then you look at the pawn. So in either way, if he takes me, I'm going to take with the h pawn. So I don't care about this. I'm not going to take him and ruin the pawn cover. So I'm going to ignore it, and I'm going to keep developing. I develop my knight, which can head to any of the dark central squares. And what was one of the drawbacks of this queen move? Well, we said it undefends this pawn. So when we hop our knight in, now it's going to have a double attack, right? One of the reasons you don't bring your queen out early. And now we're black, but we have 3 minor pieces developed. He's white. He has 1 minor piece developed. So do you see how that something's not making sense? So he's going h4, continuing his light square attack on my king, which isn't even castled there. But I'm just going to ignore him, and I'm going to do my best to play with the pieces since I have a better development than him. And I'm going to jump it in the center. And I'm going to attack his queen and fork this square. He can go back home and defend, or he can go queen d3 and defend. Queen d3 attacks the knight, so it makes more sense, in which case we can just go c5, defending the knight with a nice pawn chain. We have options. Let's see what he does though. But you can see how his moves don't really make sense. You can see how he's breaking all the principles. You play with the pieces. Develop your pieces. Castle. He's not even close to castling, right? I'm 1 move away. The only reason I'm not castling is because he's throwing everything he has. I can castle and still be fine, but there's no need to because he's made so many weaknesses that I can take advantage. Okay, so he moves his queen, but he doesn't defend this threat. But let's not automatically take, because what if you automatically take, but his move created a bigger counter threat, right, that you didn't pay attention to. So every time your opponent moves, you say, what does this threaten? What's the idea behind this move? I don't see an idea. It looks like he's just getting out of the way of the attack. Therefore, it seems safe, and I'm just going to take it. Maybe now he realizes what he's done. And this game is over. 7 moves. It really is this easy. It is. If you just develop your pieces and pay attention to the opponent's move. A lot of people at this elo, they only worry about their own moves, their own ideas, their own plans. If you just look at your opponent's moves and try to find the drawback of that move, then you could take advantage of it. You don't need plans. I'm just going to take his rook, right? It's free. And now the game's over. But let's see how he tries to defend. And we'll see how we convert this. He jumps his knight into the center, continuing his attack. But now that I'm up a rook, I'm going to take his knight. And it's one less attacker for him. He has nothing developed but his queen, which is really bad because I have moves with tempo. Really bad for him. Now there's another pawn hanging, so I can develop a piece while taking it. And this also creates an evacuation square for my knight, which I don't even care about my knight anymore. But I mean, if you just look at this, what is this? He has every piece on its starting square except the queen and move 10. You can't play chess like this, guys. You don't need to memorize openings. You don't need to see 10 moves ahead. You need to follow the basics. Like, up to a point, you really need to just follow the basics. They work. He moves his queen, not developing a single piece. This is tragic. Really tragic. Like just queen, 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 queen. Like a pinball. Boom, 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 boom. He's attacking my pawn. I don't care about my pawn. I could evacuate my knight with tempo. I could castle. I could literally do anything I want. I'm just gonna castle. Show you guys simple chess. No, don't need to be fancy. If he takes this pawn, again, that's bad for him. Why is it bad for him? He's wasting more time. He's already... Oh. He's wasted so much time with his queen. This guy. I feel bad, actually. I'm I'm going to... What am I going to do? I want to get my queen in there so I could checkmate him. So the fastest way to do that is what? Let's just play... Let's play e6. I'm going to get rid of this pawn. Right? So if he doesn't take me, I'm going to take him and open up the e-file so I could checkmate him. If he does take me, I'm going to take with the f pawn, open up the f-file so I could checkmate him. So he goes d3. I guess that develops this, so it's a start. We're proud of him. He didn't make a queen move. We are proud of him. Okay. And now you can't evacuate your knight, but like I said, I don't care. I'm just having fun. I want to checkmate this guy. Let's bring our queen into the game. I said I was going to take, but I guess not. We can go maybe queen here. If we take, he'll probably take. We could take the e-file. This is fine. Let's just develop our queen to f6. And now our rooks are connected. He's still making pawn moves. He still hasn't moved a single thing. What does this move threaten? Absolutely nothing. So now we can just do whatever we want. This is actually hanging his bishop. So if we move our bishop, right, I'm just going to throw this check in there. He can block here if he wants. He can throw a piece here if he wants. Trades are good for us because we're up a bunch of material. His king is super weak. You can do anything you want. I'm not playing accurate. I'm just playing moves that I can verbalize in words that are still going to win. So he just blocks with a piece. We are up material. If you take his bishop, he'll take back with the knight. That's perfectly fine. But in this position now, I happen to notice a tactic. His bishop is currently pinned, right? So I noticed that if I bring my queen to the back rank, he can't take it because it's pinned. So I noticed that this is a check. This square is covered by my knight, so he has to move his king up. And then you have queen e1 check. Then he can take your knight. But then you have queen c3 check because your bishop coordinates. If he goes here, check. Now he escapes back to the light square, so that doesn't work. So check here. What about this check? Then he has to go, let's say here. Then you can take the bishop with the queen, so that's nice. So we're gonna start with this and just see what happens. Well, not see what happens. He's forced to go here, so we know what happens. At the end of the line, I just said this bishop's hanging, so we can just change up the move order. We can just take this bishop if we want. He can't take back with the knight because his rook hangs. So we can take this bishop and I don't know what he does. He's kind of like toast. He's just gonna get checkmated, so let's do that. We're just gonna take his bishop and checkmate him. Here, here, here. He keeps going around in circles. So annoying. We gotta create some type of mating net. And where's his queen? Not helping his king, that's where. Is he gonna resign? Wow, he goes bishop b2, hitting the knight and hanging itself. Debatable. I'm gonna take that because that's free. Now he's gonna resign. Maybe he's angry. Maybe he's just angry he won't resign. What did he take? A pawn? Queen takes pawn. Yes. Oof. I was about to go here. That's so annoying. So first I'm going to go here. So he gets off of this file. But even here is not checkmate because he takes this. But I'll just go rook here and then... I don't know. Well, let's just start with rook here. He has to go, what, here? And then he escapes through here. Oh my god. Okay, so where's the checkmate? Now there has to be a checkmate. And not so hard to find. Let's see. So he goes there. I mean, we can close the net with e5. e5 epaulets. Is this a checkmate? No, because he goes here. But then this is a checkmate. Actually, that's prettier because that's a pawn checkmate. Although he could sack the queen and ruin it. But then if I take takes, I have this checkmate. Check. I know I had a mate in 1, but this is prettier, so I'm going with the mate in 2. And that's it. 3 speedrun games. We got up to, I don't know, we'll get like 20 points. Whatever, 640. And that was just so easy. The games were so short. They hung everything all the time. Don't know how constructive that is other than if you're completely new to the game. Stop hanging your pieces. And you have to ask yourself on every turn, why did my opponent do that? What is the threat? Every time. Every time. Every turn. Start doing that. Watch your elo go up. Submit your rapid games. Let me review them. Goodbye.